Hello, and welcome back to Rejuvenated Women, Impeccable Health for High-Performing Women. I'm your host, Dr. Alex Swenson-Ridley, and today I am joined by Dr. Roseann Capanna-Hodge, who is a mental health trailblazer, founder of the Global Institute of Children's Mental Health, and media personality who is changing the way we view and treat our children's mental health. She is known for brain-based solutions for struggling kids, and her work has helped thousands reverse the most challenging conditions such as ADHD, anxiety, mood, Lyme, and PANS-PANDAS using proven holistic therapies. She's often featured on dozens of media outlets. So Dr. Roseann, welcome to the show.
Well, I'm so excited. If our pre-talk is any indication of how good this podcast is going to be, it's going to be awesome.
Oh, it's going to be great. And I'm excited. This is shifting gears a little bit from what I normally focus on. We were talking about, the focus of this show is on self-less syndrome and how we as women really struggle to make time for ourselves sometimes. And one of the big areas that really rears its head is with our kids. My previous background, I actually didn't share this. I've been a pediatric chiropractor for the last decade. And so a lot of how I got into doing what I do is watching moms just floundering and struggling to take care of themselves because they're so worried about their kids. And I'm sure you see this a lot too.
Absolutely. And let's be honest, Alex, there's a lot to worry about kids today, and increasingly so in this pandemic. And, we as parents, and especially as mothers, there's that old adage, you're only as happy as your happiest child. And I get that.
Yeah.
As a special needs mom times two, with one kid with pretty severe mental health struggles due to having Lyme and PANS, and having PANS, it's hard when your child is struggling, right? So 50% of US children have a physical or mental health problem. So this is not uncommon, right? And what do? We put ourselves on pause.
Yeah.
Hopefully only pause. But we think that, I always used to talk about when, my son got Lyme when he was 22 months old, and we didn't know.
Okay.
And so I had already been working with patients with Lyme disease for 10 years. Mm-hmm. And so I knew, but I didn't know. And I didn't know you can get Lyme in December, right? Because at this point it was, mid 2000s that, we just didn't know. There's still so much ignorance about it. So when we finally knew within a 6-month period that he had Lyme, it was already too late. It had gone to the brain. As little as 2 weeks, they can go to different organs, with the brain being one of it. And I kept thinking the next treatment was the solution, right? So they put him on this kind of antibiotics. I thought that's going to be the fix. So I treated everything like a sprint, not a marathon. And once about 7-8 years came along, I said, I think this is a marathon. And, I put on, I don't know how much weight I put on, 30, 40 pounds. I just really wasn't doing that self-care. And then I was like, I gotta prepare. Okay. I got to prepare. And that means I've got to take care of myself. And then I just redid everything. But, it's so easy to feel like I'm going to do this and I'm not going to take care of myself, and how bad it is. Like it can unravel real quick, in terms of your own physical and mental health. And we think we're doing the right thing by focusing on our kids, but I promise you're not.
Yeah, they need us to focus on ourselves. And, I still struggle with this too. Like, even just my most recent example is this last week, my son just got back from visiting his dad in Minnesota. He was sick like the entire week. He's been back with a fever and a cough and, snotty nose, not COVID, but we did get him tested just to be sure, because that's what we do these days. But on Friday, Friday had become my self-care day, and I had a massage scheduled, and I normally got adjusted and like just have some downtime. And, somebody didn't want that to be what we did that day. And so who ends up rescheduling their massage? And, I did reschedule. I didn't just flat out cancel. But the whole time I was thinking, I'm like, okay, like, there's this place where there's give and take with it, but we have to be committed to making it happen. So I had my massage yesterday. I went kayaking with a friend. I did what I needed to do, and I didn't feel guilty about it. And I was just like, this is for me, so I can show up and be a better mom for him, which is ultimately what it's about.
Yeah. Well, the mom guilt is real. And here's what I always say, like, I'm going to get my nails done tonight because I got a photo shoot on Wednesday. I got to get rid of the red nails. So I got to have a more neutral nail color or whatever, which is, I love getting my nails done. It's always so fun or whatever. We all have our things. So the big things that are an hour or 2 hours or a day are great. But what I always talk about is that, let's look to neuroscience, right? So I'm always like brainy nerdy stuff with Dr. Rao. Neuroscience says we just need as little as 10 minutes to regulate our nervous system. So I think one of the biggest barriers to mom self-care is the time barrier. And I think it's valid. I think it's true. I think sometimes we have times in our lives, especially when our kids are real little,
Yeah.
you're nursing, you're a milk truck, you got multiple kids, your pandemics, homeschooling and working, right? There are a lot of things, right? You know what I mean? You bought some puppies and you're like, why did I buy some puppies? I already have kids, like just all these things. You're getting divorced, whatever. My mom just had a stroke, like I'm trying to figure things out, right? But you need 10 minutes. And I think when we say, every freaking mother can get 10 minutes in their day. Okay. I don't care if to sit in your car. You don't want to go to the bathroom because they're going to find you in the bathroom. That's the place everybody finds you, right? Maybe it's a guest bedroom, maybe it's some other location or maybe you're getting up early or you're doing this at night or both. And you're doing things like you missed your fun time because your son was sick. That happens. Well, what's your backup self-care that you can do on your own? For me, it's always breath work, right? And if some people, some people, especially with a trauma background, sometimes have a visceral reaction to doing breath work. Well, you can do walking meditation. You can do yoga. You can do brain gym exercises. You can do somatic experiencing based exercises. There are other things you can do, and it can be 10 minutes. It just has to be something you're conscious about, and you've got to create that time, and you have to be consistent about it. I think that's been something that's hard for people who can't just do one-offs and then be like, oh yeah, I should be feeling great. A massage every other week. Hello, I do that, is great. But what do you do in the other 13 days?
Exactly. And I think we get, and I found for me, we get so hung up on that it has to look a certain way. Like if I'm going to do yoga, I have to put on my clothes and it takes like an hour and a half. I have to go to the studio. Like, no, you can like put on some yoga with Adrian for 10 minutes and just like do something in your pajamas. Like it doesn't have to, we have to let go of I guess it's societal constructs is the best thing I can come up with. Things have to look a certain way, or your house has to be clean enough for you to take time for, yourself or whatever it is.
I mean, great point. Like there will always be daily things that we need to do on our list, right? You know what I mean? Like, oh, I've gotten real comfortable with leaving the dishes in the sink and then going for a walk. Like, my mother probably would get twitchy, but my mother doesn't live there.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So I grew up with a house where, in the 70s, my mom had the plastic on the furniture, right? You know what I mean? And, she really liked things to be clean. That was her pride and joy. I don't think I ever really bought into that. I like things to be clean. I'm not going to lie. Don't get me wrong. But, I found ways for me to economize my time and prioritize certain things. It's called a housekeeper. But but we all got to do what we can do, right? I think a lot of working women, I know I chose a housekeeper over a babysitter. So I was like, that's always going to be a priority for me. Where other people like to get takeout. I don't like takeout a lot. I like to cook. That's my zen. That's my relaxation point. So we have to look at what do we have, what can we do, and what can you do on the daily? These 10 minutes have to be a priority. Maybe before your feet touch, the floor in the morning, you're doing 10 minutes of breath work, or you're doing 10 minutes of prayer, you're doing, gratitude, positive affirmations. Like these things, as corny as they sound, they're not corny. They regulate your nervous system. And we are so stress activated that we've got to really help get this down, not just for ourselves, but because our kids do something fancy called co-regulate based on how we are regulating. So when we don't have our stuff together, they feel it through the nonverbal communication that is coming through to you. So kids of all ages will pay more attention to what you do and what you look like, what your body language is saying, than what comes out of your mouth. Not that they don't listen to what comes out of your mouth. I mean, sometimes they don't if they're between 13 and 14. I'm just saying.
I have teenagers too.
Oh, you do, right? So, but what it is really important, to do these things so that, your nervous system is able to get into that relaxed, parasympathetic, what I call hot tub state, right? Get out of that stressed, sympathetic dominant, right? Get it down. And I always like to call it the hot tub state, because when we live in this relaxed state, when you come out of the hot tub, you can't be angry. You're going to be happy. You're going to be chilled. And it's because your nervous system is deeply, deeply relaxed. And what I'm saying is 10 minutes a day. If you want to do more, go for it. But 10 minutes is enough to keep it lubricated so that it can be responsive to stressors. Activate, go down. Activate, go down. What's happening to everybody is they're activating and it's staying up. And then it's going activating and it's going up. And then it's activating. And then what happens is, who hasn't felt like that when they're so freaking annoyed? And then you throw some hormone changes in there. And then, somebody puts an empty box of cookies back in the pantry and you're ready to kill somebody.
Yeah. And that, you brought up the hormones, which is great because, I talk about and work a lot with women on hormone issues. And like one of the biggest things that throws them out of whack, ladies, is stress. And when we aren't doing these things to self-regulate and to keep our nervous system in check and to, keep our moods more stable. And so when you're experiencing those massive swings over, and I've been guilty of this too. I have teenagers who I was gone for 10 days and I'm like, how many empty boxes can I pull out of the flipping pantry? Honestly, people.
Freaking throw them in the garbage,
right? Come on. But my husband's just as bad. But, that aside, like those little things don't send you into this huge uproar. It's you can have like a, actual adult conversation about it.
It's all the things that led to that, and I think the thing that's always really surprising to people about stress is that, we know from science that it could be happy stressors as much as it can be bad stressors. Like I'm just coming out of a book launch, right? So it's my third book. It's my second book launch in a 6-month period. And I love this book. It's called It's Gonna Be Okay. And it's amazing. It's a wonderful resource, but it's been a lot. I mean, I've been on dozens and dozens and dozens of podcasts and TV shows and articles and things like that. Super fun, but it means that you're shortchanging something, right? So, for me with sleep, I chose to get up to continue to get up early so that I could get my 30-minute workout in. Because I know that if I don't work out, it's a slippery slope for me. You know what I mean? I feel even worse when I don't do that. But my sleep has been affected and I'm conscientiously now trying to work back to get it back on track.
And I think that's so key because I know I've been guilty as high-performing woman owning like a 7-figure clinic and chiropractic clinic and all that stuff. It's like there was never a break. Like I just kept going, right? And so I was just on this trajectory kind of, straight up, and it needs to have the valleys where you come down from the, chaos and the stress where you're not always just pushing. And whether that's career or business, like family life, I mean, we can strap ourselves so bad with kids' activities and all the stuff we do these days.
So it's so true, right? And also too, I think we need to be careful. We're coming sort of out of this pandemic. We don't know what's going to be happening. And people have sort of like jumped into the deep end, right? Yeah. And they're just revving back up. And maybe some people use this time to recalibrate, right? Especially for women that are listening right here, they're probably listening because they're at a place where they're like, wait a second, I need to do more. And traditional ways have not helped me. And I need to think about a deeper level of change, which is awesome. And you need to continue that journey. And it's an evolutionary process,
Yes.
but there are also people that are here that are like, I haven't really found what is helping me. So you definitely need to do that before you jump into the deep end of the pool and start layering stressors in, because want to get your kid back into soccer and this and that and whatever. And maybe you don't have supports,
Yeah.
so it doesn't mean you don't do anything, because I don't want you to do that. But when you're not operating at your best, you want to be really strategic about what you do with your time, And
Yeah.
I think it's a great lesson for kids to have stress management too, on how to negotiate. My kids don't like to do a lot of stuff. Like, they enjoy their downtime. And I'm like, oh, well, what do you think about this? Even today, I said to my 10-year-old, what time do you want your tutor to come over? Would you prefer 3 o'clock? And then you can have time to do this, this, and this, or 4. And he was like, I think 4 o'clock. And I was like, okay, and he understood what he needed, and he was able to, it's a simple choice. And when you can give choices to your kids, it's great too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it's been interesting for me, and we'll kind of circle back to, because I know a lot of women listening to this might be like, okay, it all sounds well and good, but like, how the heck do, my kid has this going on. How do I really make time? Like, I have patients who have kids with Lyme disease and,
Yeah.
pandas, some of the more intense things that really take, it takes a lot as a parent. Like, I watched my mom get Lyme probably around the same time your son did.
Yeah.
She's had it for 20 years now, and it's not an easy road, and it went neurological with her. And I mean, there's a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
stuff that you really don't know until you go through it with them. And
No.
it's hard.
I mean, the bulk of the clients that I work with all over the world, whether people come to my center or virtually, their kids are often in crisis when they come to me.
Yeah.
So we're not saying it's easy. And that's why I say 10 minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
So you owe it to yourself and you owe it to your kid. Remember, so first you're taking care of yourself, trying to get that nervous system down. Your child is going to regulate off of you. And so you need to do that. That's the cycle. That's the deep underlying part of it. But also on the surface level, they get to see that you are taking care of yourself, and they get to learn that for themselves. A lot of times parents will say to me, whether their kid is, typical or in crisis or has a struggle, right? That their child is resistant to these things. Well, are you doing it with them? Are you role modeling? These are important changes. I have my older son, he's on the other side of PANS, even though that damn Bartonella rash came back about a month ago. So we're back on, but he's better than he ever has been behaviorally and emotionally, socially, in his entire life. Okay. And, you have to find that time to help them, because it's so important that they understand. My kid, as difficult as he was his entire life, he would do these things with me. He would do some biofeedback. He would do some neurofeedback. He did PMF. He saw me doing it. He saw his father doing it. He got to see that we valued these kind of things. So even if at times, if it was age appropriate for him to begrudgingly do it, I mean, now both my boys, a 10 and a 16-year-old, ask for things. I gave my son, we had to go back on all these, homeopathy and herbals and all this other stuff for his Bartonella rash coming out. And I gave him some electrolytes, and I said, what do you think of this? And he says, I don't like it. He's like, but if you want me to take it, I'll take it. And I thought, wow,
Yeah.
this is a marked improvement,
That's huge.
and right, big deal. And I said to him, oh, you're so better than your dad, because your dad is a big wussy. And he makes it like, oh, it's terrible. He makes all these faces when I give him things. He looks like he's having a seizure. And we were just cracking up, because it's the truth, Gotta laugh too in all this, people. So how do you do it? You find who can't do 10 minutes. I challenge you to that. And if your kid is really struggling, I've been there. I'm a PANS mom. I've been there when I thought I should call a priest for a demonic possession. I mean, I'm not joking, but I am, but because it's there. So,
Yeah.
I get it. I've been there when my kid, came after me with knives. This is serious stuff. But you owe it to yourself, you owe it to your kid, and it's part of helping them, it's part of helping you. And when we do this too, I think the other part of this is, what are we actually teaching our kids besides self-care? How are we teaching them to deal with their own stress without constantly grabbing onto you, which is a big challenge today. And it's the biggest decline, Alex, that I've seen in kids in my 30 years in mental health is the lowering of stress tolerance. Kids today do not know how to manage stress.
Yeah.
And right?
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
And I think, like, I don't know what you think about this, but I'm just thinking about this because my son's playing video games right now. But, like I watch him and he's like getting so stressed out, like playing these games, and we don't have the things that are, I mean,
Calming our nervous system.
I've put things in place, but it's like he doesn't understand, like, you shouldn't be that stressed out over a game. Like this, just calm it down. Yeah. So,
Well, video games, I mean, there's not one factor, right? I
right.
think
There's a lot of things.
there's a lot of factors. And I think technology is a factor. I think it's more about, I don't think technology is evil. I think we're spending too much time on technology, right? So
Right.
the average 7 to 12-year-old spends pre-pandemic, 2019, about 4.5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And 13 to 18-year-olds spend 7.5 hours. So the question is, what are they not doing? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're constantly on video games, where's your creative play?
Yeah.
Where's your collaborative play with other kids? Where's physical, motor planning, eye-hand coordination activities? So we're seeing that kind of decline. We're also teaching kids that you need constant stimulation,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And I know that, like, my phone, which is a computer, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember going on vacation and I think he was 7. My 7-year-old drew a picture of me sitting in the chair with my phone in my hand.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's confronting.
Mm-hmm. So
Mm-hmm.
I was like, need to be putting my phone down at times. Right. And so
Yeah.
I do that. And I try to get it away from me when I'm doing things like having lunch with my kids or whatever, just like physically move it away from me, because it's very, on a deeply subconscious level, you want to check it. You want to look at it. It buzzes. What's that? You know what I mean? So, and so we have to role model that. We have to have things in place for that. But I think ultimately kids today don't have good coping skills because they are not having opportunities to play and they're not working things out with their peers. And parents are, bubble wrapping their kids. Like there's a bubble wrap parenting going on. Nobody wants their kids to experience anything uncomfortable. Right. And
Right.
so we're avoiding uncomfortableness. And what happens is when kids don't learn how to connect those body sensations, like, what's really being angry, what's grief, what's sadness, all those ranges of emotions, they're not connecting with them and learning how to tolerate them and finding those coping skills. It just keeps moving forward in a negative way. They don't have solutions on how to deal with these things. And they always look to adults, and adults are always going in with life preservers. And so one of the biggest ways that parents can preserve their own sanity, but also give kids the keys to lifelong mental health, to really develop resilience and grit, is to get them to learn how to cope. And it's through simple shifts in how they parent. So instead of always rescuing your kid, right? So, your kid is mad that they come in and they are like, I got a C on that test. Parents will say things like, well, why did that teacher give you that? Instead of, how did you earn that C? Let's look at that. And those kind of shifts in language to teach them the ways to cope with it, right? Oh, you got a C? Well, last time you got an A, what'd you do different? Oh, I did this and that. Okay, so what are you doing next time? Okay, do you need any help with that? No, or yeah, okay. You really got to push your kids to learn how to manage and problem solve on their own. And without that, their nervous system doesn't know how to regulate. Everything becomes a stressor if they can't cope with it on their own.
Yeah. And I mean, you know more about this than I do, but in all of my training, like kids with ADHD or with some of the more neurologically based issues that they deal with now, a lot of it is like they don't know that they literally can't regulate. So everything is just coming at them all the time. And, then they start to develop symptoms of that, and it's all reaction to that.
Yeah, those are the epitome of a dysregulated nervous system, which is the basis of my work, is to regulate the nervous system, then come in with new learning, right?
Yeah.
So, they're always trying to find a workaround. Like a pill isn't going to fix that. You got to regulate the nervous system, and then you have to teach them new behaviors. And you're like, well, what do you mean new behaviors? Well, even a 1-year-old has developed habits, ways of doing things. And as kids get older, and I mean kids like 20-something-year-olds, I work with them too, you form habits. And sometimes habits are healthy, right? And sometimes they're not. And it's the brain's habits. So we have to replace behaviors that aren't serving, behaviors that are causing failure. We have to change that. And the nervous system has that capacity. You just have to give it the right input.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And part of that right input, as we've been talking about, is mirroring it for them.
Yeah.
And doing it for ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, this parenting thing ain't easy. You know what I mean? And you get what you get. You know what I mean? Like I did detoxing before I even conceived, before it was cool. Like, you know what I mean? I was organic and healthy and doing stuff my whole life. Who's to think that a tick was going to cause this kind of thing for my older one? And my younger one's dyslexic. He's totally fine. I'm not worried about him. He's learned to read. He's whatever. He's going to be, he'll be fine. I'm taking marriage offers for him. He's an incredible kid. So not that his brother's not incredible, but he's a difficult kid. He's really difficult. He's almost just at 16. Everything isn't a no. I've had a kid my entire life. It didn't matter what it was. He said no. Wow. That's hard. That is really hard. And I think all of my Lyme and PANS and anxious, and your kid's diagnosed with ODD. Let me tell you, ODD ain't a real diagnosis. There's something else there, but they have a mood disorder. These are all things that kids are experiencing at higher rates. I mean, there's just so incredible. 1 in 37 kids have autism. I mean, it's real,
That number's not getting better.
They estimate that in about 25 years, will be 1 in 4 children will be born with autism.
And I have all kinds of thoughts on why that is, but we don't know.
That's a whole other conversation we should talk about. Moms and autism and stuff like that. And
yeah.
So we're trending towards that for a reason. And there's a lot we can do to unwind that.
Yeah. And a lot of what we talked about on this episode is, heading in that direction. So
yeah.
Well, just in wrapping up, first, how can people connect with you if they've got?
So I'm pretty much Dr. Roseann everywhere. So if you're just listening, it's DrRoseann.com. On Instagram, I'm Dr. Roseann, TikTok, YouTube, Pinterest, Facebook, I am Dr. Roseann Capanna-Hodge, because somebody else had the nerve of taking Dr. Roseann.
Oh, how dare they?
But that's where people can get me, and you can click there and you can find my book, It's Going to Be Okay, which is basically a roadmap on how to reverse and reduce mental health problems. I mean, I've got the system and it works. Or you can go to itsgonnabeokay.com.
Awesome. And, I encourage everyone with that. I know, watching my own son just go through the pandemic stuff, like it's affected them just as much as it has all of us, and if not more so. Just
absolutely. Absolutely. And we shouldn't, there's a lot of things we can do to really struggles are missed. Takes 11 years on average from the onset of a mental health problem before somebody gets proper help. And I'm talking loving homes could be all kinds of homes, but it can also occur in loving homes. And I think the pandemic highlighted that people
Yeah.
were like, wow, my kid's really having a hard time. And don't expect your kid to be like, I'm depressed, I'm anxious. It just
Yeah.
happens. It shows up in behavior. So nobody ever regrets getting help. They only regret when they don't. And so it's so important to really do that deeper work, because everybody wants their kids to be happy and healthy, but we can't just wish for it. We have to take action on it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know I've never been one to shy away from, getting him into therapy or like
Yeah.
getting out, use outside resources, use someone like Dr. Roseann just to help them. Because,
I mean, and it's a
well,
beautiful
you.
thing. And it always, it always moves the dial, right? When you have the right treatment, the right time, it absolutely helps move the dial. And a lot of our work is lifestyle changes. And it's
Yeah.
just so dramatic, when I really dive into a lot of lifestyle changes in my book. But it's also about a different way to look at things, which, people always ask, like, how do I get so many dramatic results? And I'm like, it's because I use neuroscience, and
Yeah.
I don't just guess. I actually, I have 40 pages of research citations, and, I'm not okay with the way things are with kids. I'm just not going to sit here and let this happen. And we need to get this message out, and it really can be, parents are stressed for a reason. Like, I'm not denying I and you have experienced highly stressful periods.
Yeah.
I would never wish on my worst enemy what I experienced with my son with PANS, when I had every resource, funds, you name it, and still couldn't beat this damn Lyme thing, right?
Hmm.
So it's even more stressful when you don't have that, right?
Yeah.
So it's, so we can't pretend stress isn't real. But what we can do is we can control how our body and mind reacts to it. And we
Yeah.
have a lot of power in that.
We really do. I interviewed another woman on the show and we talked about stress as a perception. And it is, and it very like, the manifestation of it in our bodies is real, but we have the ability to
Yes,
de-escalate it. And
we
so,
totally do. I talk a lot about a resiliency mindset, and it's how you view, manage, and recover from stress, right?
yeah.
So there's a lot in the best people, their mindset, how they right out of the gate, how they view stress, and the best people in managing stress. We just don't view stress the same way. I don't view stressors the same way as my peers. I see it all the time. Like, I know what my stressors are. I recently bought a car and the guy was like, you're just always so pleasant. He's like, what really pisses you off? And I was like, oh, that's easy. That's rude people. He's like,
Yeah.
insane. And I was like, I cannot stand rude people. You want to get me going, like, to be like, nope. I mean, I'm going to set a boundary with you in 2 seconds. It's not acceptable. It's never acceptable to be rude. I have no tolerance for rude people. Now I'll be like, you are stressed. Can I help you? But you got one shot with that. So, but it is really how we view stress. And, I know it's hard. Like, you got a kid who's nonverbal and autistic. Let me tell you, that's freaking hard.
Yeah.
I've had moms with 3 kids with autism, God bless. I mean,
Yeah.
this is hard stuff. And they just were like, this is what I'm going to do. And this is how I'm going to do it. And they found ways and for themselves and their kids.
Which is incredible and awesome.
It is awesome. It is awesome. And as I always say, wherever you're at, it's going to be okay. You just got to take action. And that action is specific to you, and sometimes it's just the smallest things. Maybe it's doing that breath work, every day. And that's all you can do. And you know what? You need to be like, that is what I am doing. I look forward to the change. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Dr. Roseann, thank you so much for coming on, just sharing your message and helping me reiterate that it is important to take care of ourselves, ladies. It's honestly the best thing we can do for our kids. So no matter how hard the struggle is.
So important.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, be sure to check out her book. It's going to be okay, right? That's the name of the book. Yep. And visit drroseann.com. And we just appreciate your time and you coming on.
Well, thank you for the conversation.